Welcome everyone to this episode of Shirley Talk. I'm Mike Mulrooney, and Kelly is still out on maternity leave, so we're still missing Kelly, but she's out enjoying her time with her family. And before we get started, if you need insurance, check out our good friend Shane O'Keefe and We Care Insurance. He knows about every health insurance program out there. Don't know if he does life insurance. I think he may, but man, I tell you, if you don't have health insurance in today's world, you could be in a worse situation than not because things are so expensive. So anyway, reach out to We Care, Shane O'Keefe, and check out what he might be able to do for you and get you some insurance if you don't have it. So today we have my friend Marcy in today. How you doing, Marcy?
I'm good. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, glad to have you. We had a conversation a while back. We were at a networking event, and I said something about kids and how Shirley's Way would eventually like to start doing more with kids in our community. And you said that kind of touched a nerve with you. We talked a little bit about why. So I didn't know if you would like to talk a little bit about that and your motivation to maybe get involved and help kids in the community.
Oh, I'd love to. And we did talk a little bit about it. And when you said that, I was like, I've got to go talk to Mike. You were talking in preference to kids who aren't getting the best education, that maybe live in underprivileged areas. And again, I'm not sure if that's the right terminology, but kids who wouldn't get that extra step up or extra set of hands, or maybe don't always get breakfast or lunch in the morning, or don't get the greatest education when it comes to homework and helping with that, just those types of things. And I said, that's phenomenal. And you're like, really? And I said, yeah, that's me. I was that kid. So it really touched my heart. And I really appreciate what the community tries to do for kids like that. I actually went to Wheatley. I got bused. And I kind of lived all over Louisville. I was all over the South End, ended up in Bullitt County and graduated from North Bullitt. But I can't even count how many schools I've been to. I've been to so many different schools. But Wheatley was one of those that stood out. I got bused for a couple years, 4th and 5th grade years. Had to take a couple buses actually to get there. I was on the bus, and majority, I'd say over an hour and a half, I guess, of my
One
day.
way?
Mm-hmm.
So 3 hours, most of your day was 3 hours of bus travel.
Yeah, it was a long day.
Wow.
And we would transfer buses and that kind of stuff. But what a wonderful experience I had there, though. Great education. And more so than that, just the support. I really got instilled with a lot of confidence. Those teachers just loved on me. I got to go 4-H camp. They paid for that. Like, they all kind of pulled together. I don't know if it's...
Most people in today's world probably don't even know what 4-H camp is.
And you're right, but
that was our day.
It was an amazing experience, and it just kind of groomed you with so many things, and to go to camp, right, and finally not be excluded. I got to attend field trips, which otherwise I wouldn't be able to go to because you had to pay for it.
But the teachers paid for that?
Either the teachers or the school or somebody. I have no clue.
Wow.
I just know that I normally would. I mean, I just was kind of a way of life. Like, I knew I wouldn't go. I never participated in any kind of extracurricular or organized sports or anything like that because I couldn't afford it. The only time I got to do that is when I got to sell candy bars. And that allowed me to actually participate because it didn't cost anything besides to sell the candy bars to be the feed. So,
have you seen those candy bars recently?
I have not. Are they smaller? I've heard.
Oh my gosh! World's Finest Chocolate. I used to get to those, and I couldn't wait because they were thick chocolate. I saw one the other day. It's the most thin thing I've ever seen.
It's not the same.
Anyway, not to digress on candy bars, but
they're probably more expensive too.
It's unbelievable. It's like $2 now. Where before you get $1,
it's a
it
buck,
was
a
thick.
big old,
Anyway.
I was breaking my arm to carry him, but
Yeah, they were thick. But so how did it feel? You said you knew you never thought you would get the extracurricular activities because you didn't have the money. Did it feel pretty? You might not even remember this, but when the teacher finally said you get to go today, how did that feel?
So they called me down. I think it was in the office.
Thought you were in trouble, probably.
Nah, I was a pretty good kid. I knew I wasn't in trouble. Normally, they could call me down to ask me to do extra stuff. Marcy, can you do this? Marcy, can you? So it was great.
Yeah, so they depended on you.
But I got down there and I was like, oh, what are they going to ask me to do now? I was excited. And they told me that I get to go to camp.
Wow.
I couldn't believe it. I was so excited. And then I thought, oh gosh, my parents let me. It's kind of one of those things where they let me go. And they ended up working out with them too. So they talked to them and convinced them to let me go to camp.
So for years, you didn't get to go to camp, or a couple of years?
Oh, no, I've never been to camp. I've never been anything like that.
Did you ever find out who? Of course, as a kid, you probably never thought to ask who paid for that.
I didn't, but I was very grateful. I remember that. And I remember thinking, who did that, right? But I didn't know, like, Oz where it came from. Like, where did this come from? So,
Well, as a kid, you don't realize that it costs money to do that.
oh, I realized
Oh, did you?
because I never got to do anything.
Yeah.
I mean, I knew that I was excluded from pretty much everything that cost money. It was not an option for me.
Yeah.
If it cost money, I didn't get to participate.
Yeah, me too. I didn't have a rough childhood. I don't want to make it sound like we had the worst in the world, but I got one pair of shoes a year, and me and my neighbors played basketball, and usually by the end of the year they had holes in them, the bottoms, and there was no getting a second pair of shoes. But I always wanted to play football, and I never understood why my parents wouldn't let me play football. But come to find out later on, when I was in 8th grade, a friend of ours got Western High School to donate the equipment for me to play football. But it boiled down to my parents didn't have the money to buy the equipment for me to play football.
Mm-hmm.
So I know exactly what you're talking about. You wanted to go to camp. There was no money there. I wanted to play football, but couldn't because there was no money.
Mm-hmm.
But, there's people out there that don't understand that. I think they take for granted their I don't know what you call it, your ability to do things, but when money's involved, not everybody has that same ability.
It's so true. And when you talk about, for me, it's even past the money piece of it, beyond that, I should say. When you look at children who are raised in that environment, and I can only speak for myself, right? That's all I really know is my experience. An environment, and I know that they're much worse than when I grew up, no doubt. But just in the environment that I had, and both my parents were still married, so there wasn't a broken home.
Right.
But you carry a lot of stress and because if you've got a dysfunctional home, there's so much that you carry and do. And when you get to school, you don't have the capacity most of the time to take on what you did. But Wheatley allowed me to escape, if you will. Like
That's good.
It was an escape for me to kind of go, get away from that life, to come there. And when somebody who lifted me and encouraged me and poured into me, right, allowed me to be, to believe that I could be something better, be something greater.
Yeah, you got real lucky with some really good teachers
Very
and staff
blessed.
there because, you hear kids all the time talk about, oh, I'm in school and my teacher's on the phone. They're not paying attention to me or they're doing this. And I'd like to think teachers still do that for kids. I don't know. But it sounds like you had a really amazing group of people that cared about you as kids.
They did. And I don't know. I mean, truly a gift from God, right? Like I guess this test scores and things like that were extremely high. So they saw something in me, right? They saw that this child has potential. I'm guessing because they would constantly tap on me to say, hey, can you do this for us? Hey, can you lead this for us? Hey, can you, I during those 2 years of my life, they really promoted me and encouraged me. I was, the captain of the safety patrol, and
Everybody wanted to wear that orange vest,
Yeah, and I had the captain badge, and then, I led. I was the president of our 4-H committee that we had, and just
so you really took 4-H to heart.
They were very, very much promoting it. I didn't know what it was before I got there.
Yeah.
So just those involvements of that, I was, class captain. I mean, just that they just really promoted me to a leader. Do you know what I mean? Like they saw in me something that I didn't see in myself. And I'm sure that there are many other examples and people have different examples, but just mine personally, when I think about, the, I guess, lifestyle or whatever that was living at that point and to be lifted out of that and encouraged, it is a really good story. So we talk about kids and, how can we help and what can we do? I have such a heart for that and know how important and valuable that can be. If it's to one kid, right? You can make a difference. So.
Well, as a business owner, you're a business owner, you see the value of encouraging adults and giving people the tools that they need to do their job and trusting them and building them up. Imagine how powerful this country would be if we did that with kids across the board.
I know.
Because I'm not sure all kids get that same support and that same encouragement. Because look at you. You're a great example of what that did for you. Mm-hmm. But if you take all the millions of kids and we could build some sort of foundation to give them the encouragement and the tools they need to succeed. But not everybody does that.
I know.
I talked to, I'm not going to say who, and I tried to get in here and she'll be in here, but, I spent some time in an elementary school working with some people and she'd point these kids out all the time. and say, hey, that kid last night their parents were involved in a drive-by shooting. They slept on the floor under the window. Or this kid over here last night, she got home, there was nothing to eat. And when she came in the morning, she was so hungry, she couldn't focus on school. I wish we could figure out how to get past that.
There's so many things involved when it comes to that because so many different dynamics. I mean, lots of times parents don't want to release them either. I mean, I dealt with some of that stuff too. And my parents weren't involved in that part of it, but I was in an environment that was.
Mm-hmm.
So that environment I grew up in, whether our home was actually doing that or not, we were exposed to all of that. And when you don't have the funds, the money, then you are subject to an environment of such, right? That just kind of comes with the territory. But there's just so much. It's not just a financial piece. It's not just can we feed them, but there's so much emotional and so much mental anguish and things that you don't even know, right? That you have to work through and you have to deal with because you're living most of your life in survival.
Yeah.
That's all you know, just to get through.
A lot of these kids, they're not so sure. They don't have the home to go to that we might consider a home. You know, my kids get from school, they go home, that's their home. They might stay with their aunt, their grandma, their mother, their father. They might have 5 or 6 different homes.
They may come home to an eviction notice. They may come home and not get in. I mean, this is my life. I may come home and they don't have water. They don't have electricity. And they're moving constantly, right? Even if they have a home, it's a constant move, right? Like, it was like a nomad. You know, I never knew where we were going to live the next. You know, we just kind of would wear out one place and then get evicted there and go to the next place and get evicted there and get.
So that was your lifestyle growing up?
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah, I've watched a lot of stuff. Yeah, I watched my dad be put in jail for writing code checks and doing things with the electric, trying to get it turned back on. I mean, just so many things. Yeah, I was the angel tree kid. I was, always and that's not a bad thing. These are, there's those charities for reasons, right? I think the bigger piece is how can we help, for lack of better terms, rescue some of those kids, from that environment because they don't have any control over that. That's not their choice. They didn't ask for it. And there's a lot of kids in there who are just begging. I mean, I know I was one of them, like, gosh, is there an angel can help me? Just come rescue me. And there were along the way, right? Like I gave you the example of Wheatley. There were so many great teachers who poured into me and kind of, built me up and encouraged me to be those things. So,
well, I know you've thought about this before, and I have too, and we've discussed it a little bit. It's been a while, but I was talking to Ann at the school, and we always discussed about what would be the perfect world if these kids have no place to go or they got a horrible home to go to. Where could they go? We talked about building, trying to figure out how to not even build, but have a place for them to go after school. Like take the gym at the school and set up tables and have food and have activities for them to do and help them with their homework. Because if they're going home, they're not getting it done.
And they usually have other responsibilities that they have to take care of.
Yeah.
I mean, I know that life, right? And you had to learn to balance it all. I mean, it didn't just stop at school. School was an escape, or it can be for kids, but then when they come home, they got a different life. So you're living at least 2 different lives.
Yeah.
And then you maybe can grasp some goodness. And, sometimes kids are pretty harsh. So you've got some of that going on too. But anyway, when you get home, those things, there are charities and organizations out there that are doing this. I think I shared with you, I just visited at a local church that they were doing a collaboration of those types of things. So I'm learning that they are there. And I don't think that's by accident either, that I was put in that position to see that happen. So
yeah, I hadn't heard of that place. What's the name of them?
So where I was at last week was at Southeast, and they have it's a children's collaboration, and it's for lots of those different businesses, organizations that are it's faith-based, Christian-based, that are doing for kids, like they're helping kids in multiple capacities. But I just recently joined the board for City Schoolhouse.
Okay.
And you certainly want to get the executive director to have talk with her, but they do such amazing things for those kids, and they're trying to get more schools, but they have one right now, and it's down, it's in the West End. It's on Dixie, more deep down west, and I'm not exactly sure. I've been there, but they really provide that holistic approach. Its ideal is to be walking distance for the kids, so that's in their backyard. that it is also faith-based, Christian-based education that they're getting that is approved, right? They have certified teachers who are actually teaching these kids. They've got aides. Their ratio is very low as far as student to teacher ratio is very low, so that they can get that more direct teaching, and not only that, but they get loved on, they get cared for, they're instructed, they're challenged, they're lifted, they're encouraged, all the things that I was sharing with you that I received. And I know that in my experience that not every kid got what I did. I was very blessed to be chosen, right?
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
I don't know exactly why that happened, but they definitely, I could tell that they picked me, right? Like to do that. And these kids, they're all picked. They're all chosen. Everybody who shows up at that
The city schoolhouse.
they're all chosen. They get
I know you just started working with them, but how do they pick them? I mean, are they identified by the school and the school they're in?
Some are identified by the school. Some are coming because they're troubled. Some are coming because they can't get to the next level of grades, and they have some of the background that we just talked about. So they've got all kinds of challenges. Some of them have different learning styles or different learning challenges that they have. Lots of times they are in, again, I don't know if it's the right terminology, but underprivileged areas where they can't get that. So, and they're getting referred in. I mean, they actually, no lack for kids getting there. It's the funding always, right? This is the case. And then getting the next location. So we have a huge strategic plans in place as to what we want to do and grow and build that. And I'm very excited for that. We're going to do such good things for those kids.
Yeah, that's pretty incredible. So are they going to actually be a school teaching kids or someplace for them to go after school?
It's going to be school teaching kids. And right now it's kindergarten. They have some nursery, I think, up to, and they do have some middle schoolers, but it's really supposed to be until 5th grade. But they've got some middle school because they got nowhere for them to go when they get to middle school and they don't want to stay. So some middle schoolers, they're not getting into the high school right now, but the vision continues to expand. So I met with them, and when I joined the board, I expanded it a little bit further too, saying, guys, it can't be just because if the focus was how do we get, this particular kid and this certain kid, I said, what about the kids who can't? Because these are kids right now, their parents are taking them. The parents are on board and they're supporting because it's holistic. They're really helping the families get together. I said, what about the families whose parents aren't involved? And I said, those kids are left behind more so than the others.
I know.
I said, and that's huge to me. Like, no way would I have gotten out if it wasn't for, busing got me to that point. It did. It got me out of there. And they're forced to put me in school. So I had to go to school, those types of things. And how do we get to those kids? How do we get those kids who, our conversation was still, well, statistically speaking, I said, I get that statistics. I said, but I was one. I was that one. Like, if there's one out there, we need to find them. Bring them in. We need to find them. We need to help them. And that's really my focus too, is to saying, okay, let's do all those things, right? With those kids who've got the families who want them, who can't do it. That's awesome because you're giving them an extra help up. But what about the kids that we never hear about that are passed over because they don't know?
Do they have a plan for that, or?
We will.
Yeah, because you got, if you're in the communities, that's awesome. I don't know what their plan is, but there's a lot of vacant houses that if they could find the funding to buy those houses and turn them into little schoolhouses, that would be amazing. Mm-hmm. Because those, you said the parents are bringing them now. Like you said, what about those kids that have no transportation, right, that might be able to walk somewhere to feel like a safe place? But yeah, that's pretty incredible. I never heard of that before. Yeah. Are they fairly new?
They've been around for several years, and I wish I should have known that information for you. I don't have it.
I was just curious.
Yeah, they've been around for several years. And the intent, like I said, to grow that was with families who want that, right? And I want to add another level to that to say, what about the families who might not be so easy to get? And it might be, and I told them, I said, it's not going to be easy. None of this is going to be easy. It's going to be hard. It's going to be tough. But it's worth it. Those kids are worth it. The person that started this, did they grow up in that environment and that's the way they did it? They did not. They just saw the need? Mm-hmm. Saw the need in the education system and some of the breakdowns that are kind of failing. Well, I'm hoping, I've actually had this conversation with my employer about future employees. Mm-hmm. And if we don't start figuring out how to fund early childhood education, we're going to be in a big problem. Mm-hmm. Because those are the future employees. And if we can't verify and make sure that they're educated
and understand the way the world works, these corporations, these massive corporations, are going to be having a hard time here in a few years because they're not going to have people to hire.
We're already having a hard time. Of course,
Yeah.
I'm on the other side of the business. So, yeah, we're
Yeah.
already struggling in the workforce, and it's looking completely different in recruitment and retention and all those areas. It's not the same.
Yeah. So your business, what is it what's the name of your business? You started your own business. So you went from not having much as a child, bouncing around houses, to being an entrepreneur. That's pretty incredible. How did that happen?
I've just always.
You don't look at it that way. I can tell.
I don't. I just always work
But you're
hard.
a success story. I mean, to think about the
guess.
situation you grew up in and look at you now.
I guess. I don't know. I just always worked hard, and always wanted to do good for people. It's just.
But you know how many kids, and I know you know this, you know how many kids that wouldn't have taken what you were given as an opportunity, but take it and say, they're just wanting to treat me differently, and I'm not going to fall for that. I'm going to continue over here. And a lot of kids wouldn't have taken that opportunity.
Yeah.
So, and you did, and now you're a business owner. So what's your business?
My business is HR Alliance. Started about 7 years ago. I have my entire career in HR, and the reason I'm in HR is because I love people. I couldn't.
Still,
I
after
still
the
do.
past
It's
couple of
just,
years?
it's just part of my DNA. I don't understand it. I don't know. I'm grateful because
Yeah.
I love to see. I just see goodness in all people. I really do. Even those that are very difficult. There's just goodness there. I just believe it. And I'm sure I'm wrong on some of those, but I'm still going to believe it. But how can we build and grow each other and develop? I've seen so many changes in my experience. I mean, 25 plus years in HR, so I've had a lot of experience with people. I've seen so many people develop and grow when you support them, when you encourage them, when you walk along.
It doesn't take a lot.
It doesn't. And it takes someone caring for them. It takes someone, in a different way. And it takes consistency, right?
Yeah.
It's not easy. It's not easy to get past some of those things with their deep rooted stuff sometimes. And it's not pretty. It can be ugly, but that's okay. We all have a story.
Yeah.
We all got stuff. And my experience has been the more you spend compassionately loving on people, you start to see what's underneath.
Even in today's world?
Even in today's world. People are people. Doesn't change. Might be thicker and deeper.
Yeah.
But,
I've worked a corporate job for 27 years, actually longer than that. And years ago, corporations loved people. They believed in people. They wanted to keep their staff. Then we cycled through this. Basically, everybody's a number. You can be replaced. And people are tired of that mentality.
They are.
Now you're seeing where people have the upper hand at this point and can pick and choose where they want to work. So I think corporations are scrambling to find good people that actually care about their businesses.
They are. And a lot of people are going on their own for that reason. And I'll tell you what, we've spent more time since COVID, which has been fantastic because I'm a culture kind of gal, right? When it comes to HR, I love to help businesses with their culture.
Mm-hmm.
And I can tell you so many organizations are now focusing on culture. They're looking at, who are we? What do we stand for? What is our mission? What are our core values, right? What do we believe in? And they almost had to take a stance with COVID. Like, if you don't know who you are as a business, you're not going to know which direction to go in when it comes time to make decisions for all this stuff. So helping them understand really who they are, and then they can very, very clearly understand which direction to go with COVID decisions or anything else that comes along. And it helps to build that culture. And then employees become ambassadors, right? They start to buy in. They love it. I mean, it's just caring for people. I mean, it really is just caring for people. So my heart's just so into this part. And I'm like, I love this part. Because it's, we just get to love on people.
Yeah.
And if you're an employer who's not doing that, we would not be a good fit for you.
Well, I'm glad you're spreading that message because, like I said, over the years, it's turned into people or my employees are just numbers. And it's good to hear maybe businesses are starting to wake up and listen a little bit about, okay, maybe that wasn't the right angle. Maybe we need to start treating people a little bit better.
Yeah.
And actually caring about, they've got 3 kids at home and they're struggling with home care, health care. How can we work with them versus getting rid of them because they're not here at 8? They get here at 8:05.
Yeah. They're being forced to, unfortunately, but that's okay. At least it's happening.
At least it's happening.
Yeah. So, and the good news is that it's one at a time. That's going to be my whole tagline probably till I die, but it's just always one at a time. So if I can give them example of, if I can get in with an organization and help them through that, and they can see this one at a time and look what we did to stand behind this person and help them, then there's somebody else that comes along and they believe in it, right?
Yeah.
And then it just kind of spreads. So
So HR Alliance, are you more of a consulting HR firm for businesses, or do you actually provide staff, like contract staff to people?
We don't provide contract staff, but we will help with outsourcing. So I started with a couple purposes. One is it was a need, right, for the small businesses to comply and, deal with all the things that they need to do with HR that they can't really afford and don't need to hire a full-time person for. So they just outsource a portion of that. So the small businesses, they'll take us on as their HR department, if you will, and they just take a piece of that. We do full service. So it's not just, we're going to tell you what to do and then you have to go do it. We'll actually, lay it out for you, usually conduct an audit of what's going on so we know what it looks like, help you understand your risk and liability, prepare a plan for you, and then we'll actually work that plan. Or if you've got internal resources, you can, decide you can do part of it, we'll do part of it. We figure it all out. It's all custom. It's what makes sense to the client and provides them value. Mm-hmm. And then the other side of it was for larger enterprise companies who maybe don't have the internal talent, the resources, the time available to get to certain things. We'll handle project work for them. Culture development's one part, which is great.
When you say culture development, what do you mean by that? You talked about it a little bit about there, but
yeah.
What's that
so
mean?
It starts with I always like to focus on core values, right? It's vision, mission, values. And we hear that so much and it's kind of cliche and it's just, the terms are burnt out. But the core value part, if you really look at that, it's basically the heart of the organization. It's how and the why you do what you do, right? Like, how do we treat people? And then why do we do what we do? And then how do we treat people along the way? And everything that you do in your business needs to point back to that, everything. So when you're making decisions, when you're writing contracts, when you are deciding who your strategic partners are, when you're hiring employees, everything needs to point back to who you are. So you're hiring like-minded people who are going to do well in the culture, those who are going to, catch on and really care for each other, right? We're here as a team. We're going to work together as a team. We're going to build each other up. We're going to lift each other. And that environment is so encouraging. And people want to be a part of that. And they hold each other accountable for that. And, then you grow that and you add the next person on. And then once you have that strength, then you can add people in who might not be so much on board and can help grow them up in that environment so that they can experience them. And because most of the time, those who, I would say, I'm not sure if it's the right term or not, but refuse that, right? There's usually a reason behind it. They've never experienced it before, or they don't believe it, or they've been hurt or abandoned or whatever it is, right? There's so many different reasons, but bringing them into that environment, then they get to experience that too.
And then eventually see the light bulb go off in their head a little bit.
Yes, and not always, but
yeah. I'd say large majority of the time.
Majority of the time. It really is. Yeah.
Yeah, because you said people want to be loved on, they want to be cared, they want to be heard.
Mm-hmm. They want to feel like they're valued and they're somebody, right? That they're important in some way.
Yeah.
Yeah. And businesses can do that too.
Yeah, I'm hoping they do. We'll see.
They can. Whether they do or not, it's up to them.
I think more people are, I think, like we said, more of them are realizing that they're going to have to. They're going to be left behind. They're not going to get the good quality people that they want if they don't start doing those things.
I can't imagine why you wouldn't want to do that. For the life of me, I don't understand it. We're all human and we're all made, and I will say created, right? Mm-hmm. The same. And with the same makeup. And it's with a heart. And things aren't always sunshine and roses. Not trying to say that. I've been in HR a long time. I've seen a lot of stuff. But I will tell you that love it covers all. It just does. You just gotta keep digging in and keep passing it on, right?
So are businesses reaching out to you quite a bit when they hear what you do to try and see if that you can help them with their culture changes?
You're not going to believe this, Mike, but I need to promote that. And I'm so busy helping the clients do that. I don't really promote that as much as I'd like to. So I do get, my clients will refer other folks, but I don't have a platform, or I haven't had a platform to do that so far. So I probably need to do that.
Yeah. Well, it sounds like you're pretty busy now that you don't have to. I mean, you can almost get too busy. Do you have staff? How many people do you have working for you?
I have 4 that are working for me right now. Yeah. And I have other 1099 contractors who do project work here and there as I need them, but 4 that are on payroll.
Yeah. Did you go to college for HR stuff? Does that even exist?
It does.
How did
now.
You learn that? Just through?
Yeah, well, that's a story too.
Hard knocks.
Yeah, yes, and I had no idea what I wanted to do, and
I still don't.
I did go to college right out of high school. Of course, living on my own, paying. And there's many people who have this story. You pay for your own stuff to get out. Then you pay for yourself, pay for your college, right? And so my education is in business. That's what I knew I was going to be in the business field. I love people, but I'm not a nurse. I wish I were. I'm not that sort of. I had more of a business mind, more of an entrepreneur mind. I didn't know where.
I'll care for you, but I'm going to put a Band-Aid on you.
I put a Band-Aid on you, but the other stuff I'm not real great at. But with my kids, of course, but it's not the other piece of it. However, I've had some experience with that with the disabled. When I worked for Cedar Lake, I got to kind of care for those folks, which has been awesome too. But that wasn't my background. I knew that I was going to go into the business world. Didn't know exactly what I was going to do. And I had worked in import export. I'd worked at Brown Forman for a period. I'd worked in several different places right out of college and kind of that very beginning piece. And I was working for kind of as an engineer. And it was a cost estimator, but we were doing engineering work. I know. I've done different. So many. I listen, jack of all trades, master of none.
Well, you got to be.
Yeah, for sure. And the HR person, the director at the time, was looking for someone to come assist her. And she called on me because she's like, I see how you don't get involved in any of the office politics. Would you like to come work in HR? And I said, what's HR? I had no idea.
I didn't either.
I was young. I was 22, maybe.
Yeah.
And I said, okay, talk to me about it. And we talked, and she said, here's the thing. You either love it or you hate it. And I said, all right. And started working for her, and I've been in love with it ever since. There's parts of it I don't like. The regulatory compliance, I know it, right? Employment labor law, I understand and know it, interpret it, but I'd rather love on people.
It's funny she said you don't get involved in the gossip, because it's kind of funny. The HR people I know seems like they know everything is going on, and they're in the know. They know what Sally said to Joe and back and forth, and they seem to know all that stuff.
And I probably should clarify. So I knew a lot because people confided in me.
Said, listen, yeah.
I never got caught up in it.
You're a good listener. How about that?
Good listener, and then I never contributed.
Yeah.
Right. So that it would stop with me. I would never. And that's, just what we should be in HR, right? That's part of the quality and character that we should lead and say, no, there's no place in this business for gossip.
Yeah, because that happens a lot.
It does. That's not how you care on people, though.
So you grew up a rough childhood. You went to Wheatley. You went to high school. How did you get in college? How did you pay for that?
I went to community college.
Okay.
First of all,
yeah.
And then started working with the company at Derby, which was West Tony. I just got the HR, and they paid a portion. I went to Sullivan after that.
Okay.
And they paid for a portion of my tuition, so I was working to pay for. And I even went to school when I had my kids, because it took me forever, right? So and again, a lot of stories like that. That's not.
The only reason I ask is because you hear people say, "Well, I just can't do it." There's no way out. There's an out. You did it.
Here's an out. It's not easy.
It's not easy, but there's a way out. You have to work and figure it out.
Yeah.
So you went to community college, worked the whole time, ended up at Sullivan, and finished up there?
Never finished.
Really?
Yep.
Wow.
Never finished. So that's not a success story, but at the same time, everybody says, well, actually it is, because I had to work twice as hard. Because when you tell people that I've got enough hours, but that's on me, but I had kids and anyway, but you do have to work extra hard. If you don't have a degree behind your name, you got to really prove as to why you can do what you can do. And
well, it's horrible. It shouldn't be that way. And I think people are starting to realize that going $20,000, $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 in debt for college education isn't always the right answer.
Yeah. If I'm with an employer and I'm working with them, I always have them to put equivalent experience or education, right, on every job description, because you're going to miss over people. And that's because of my experience, right? I get it and why they do that. And there are some positions that warrant that, and they should have them. But from the business perspective and angle, for most part, you don't necessarily. I will take experience any day over education. Experience or work ethic. That's right. And that's all combination for sure. It's character. You can't build work ethic. Somebody's either got it or they don't. Yeah. And if you base, I'd take work ethic all day long over college education. Yeah, 100% agree. But that's not the world that we live in. I think it's slowly getting there. It's gotten better. Because years ago, businesses used to hire people and train them. Or if they were internal candidate and they had work ethic, they would consider a lateral move if the person had the ability to learn. Mm-hmm.
But and I think businesses are maybe rethinking the whole college education thing, or I think they will eventually because you just can't. It's too expensive for a lot of people to go.
Some are, but they're going to be forced to, just like everything else, because they're out of the workforce is just drained.
Yeah.
So if you want to get some good people who are going to work, now you do have to be very careful in your selection process because, like you said, not everybody has that work ethic, right? And part of what the degree shows is that somebody's worked hard to get that degree, so that it's kind of an entry level. Like, okay, well, I've spent the past 4 years or however many, working on that education, but you can't underestimate some of those who've got that grit, right? Who just want to get it done and want to help, and
I agree.
they're going to do whatever it takes to make it happen. And those things we can help figure out, is this person somebody who's going to do that, or is it going to be someone who's the other? So somebody could have a college degree and demand everything in the world and have a sense of entitlement because they have it, right? And this is not every college degree person, so I'm not trying to say that, but
It happens.
it does happen.
Yeah, I've
But
seen it.
but you'd rather have someone who's going to come in and grind it out, right? And do whatever it takes to get the job done, versus and that they have the capacity, right? And the competence to handle it. I mean, those are pieces. But man, I believe if you're coachable, I'll take coachability over anything. If you're coachable, we'll just groom you. We'll make it happen.
Yeah.
But you got to be
It's
coachable.
funny you say that. I've coached a lot over the years, basketball, football, volleyball, and I mean, probably wrong for me to do this, but I look at the kids, the coachable kids, you realize are probably going to be pretty successful in life. The ones that aren't coachable, that won't listen, that won't do anything, you can almost see a pattern of maybe they're not going to be as successful over the years because they just don't listen.
Yeah. That or they've got some hard lessons to learn, right?
That's
One of
right.
the two things.
I'm
will
not
happen.
writing them off. I'm just saying
Yeah.
you can almost, as a coach, coachable, when you brought that up,
So
you can
true.
almost see the ones in an early age who, who's going to do it and who's not.
You're exactly right. And you heard that come out of me too, right? Like, I don't want to leave anybody behind. I'm like, well, I'm not going to give up on them either because because possibly they could come around. Everybody learns at different paces and learns at different ways. And life has a way. It has a way of breaking you, has a way of making you and shaking you up. And, just because, you knew somebody 10 years ago and they were that person doesn't mean that they're going to be the same person, when you come across them.
I watched, and it all happened last week or 2 weeks ago. There was a college coach lost his cool after a game, right or wrong. He lost his cool, and he was instantly defined 2 hours later as this or that. And people make mistakes, and we have to realize that that's not always them. And we have to give people grace.
That's exactly right.
And realize that people are going to make mistakes. They're going to do things, but that doesn't define them for the rest of their lives.
It shouldn't.
In anyway. So
Yeah, if it's a consistent pattern, that's one thing. And again, it doesn't
Yeah.
make that person title them, right? And that's define them as to who they are, but maybe it's something they need to work on, right? But if it's a moment, we all have moments,
Yeah.
life can come at you,
Yeah.
and it's
Yeah,
not easy.
because after that happened, a week later, they got a huge story of him embracing one of his players after they lost and saw that side of him. So anyway, it's wrongly accusing people of stuff. But well, anyway, so last question. I mean, did you see things in the HR world that just drove you crazy and that's what forced you or made you to make the decision to start your own business?
Why did I start my own business? Well,
Usually people that start their own businesses are fed up with something they've seen and they realize they think they can change it.
you're right. I did. I wanted to go into outsourcing consulting, just in general. I didn't necessarily start this to think I was going to start my own business, although I have an entrepreneurial spirit. But what I saw was I got tired of corporate America. I got tired of being a number. I wanted to make a difference. I wanted to help people, wanted to care for people. And I just got tired. And that's the other reason I started the business, right? I told you there's two parts of it. One was because there was a need for it, and this is what they need. The other side is I wanted to create an employment for HR practitioners to land, right? Like they're tired of same thing that I was, right? But they're skilled. They've got talent and they want to care for people outside of the red tape that they're required to do, right? They want to really just get involved and that's what I've hired. I've hired good people like that and very fortunate. I've got a good team. So.
Yeah, the good HR people that I've dealt with over the years are friends of mine, but they actually truly care and listen and are paying attention.
Yeah.
And it's tough to find people like that, but when you do, you've got good ones.
Yeah. And that's what it's built on. And I told him, I said, guys, it's a very tough environment because you deal with so much, right? It's pretty thankless. But in here, in our team here, we're going to lift each other. We're going to encourage each other. And we're going to come here and we can talk about our days and what didn't go well and all that stuff because we should, right? And then we're going to say, hey, how can I help you? And that must have been tough. And how'd you deal with that? And, wow, you're doing a great job. Man, I can't believe you handled that so well. Those types of things. So.
Yeah, that's pretty incredible. Yeah, because you've got a business that most people just don't start. I mean, it's, most people, well, not everybody starts a charity like I did either, but I just.
That's so true.
You see people, story. I'm an electrician, I'm going to start electrical business. You don't hear many HR businesses like that.
Yeah. Well, I when I saw the consulting, actually, I had thoughts for the consulting before it ever became a thing.
Okay.
And then when I started it, most of my job was educating the market because they were like, how does this work? And what is it? And what's it? And then the other thing that I had a hard time with in the market was HR seen as a cost center, right? There's no value there, right? It's just, you guys are just costing us money.
Yeah, I'm in IT, so I know exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah, you can appreciate that. So
y'all just a have to have, leave us alone. So.
Right. But now with everything shifting and stuff, I mean, people are looking for different options. They're looking for different ways. They need people, right? Staff. And we're struggling to help them as well because the market's just so dried up. And it's completely changed. It's a whole different conversation, but definitely wanted to help and see that. And, I'd done this for a couple other companies as well and said, why shouldn't I do this for myself? It wasn't the intent, but as life happens and things shift and change, I'm like, okay, well, I guess I'm kind of pushed in this direction. I'm at a crossroads, right? I go back and work in corporate America, or hey, I go ahead and just stay and do this. I've done this for a couple of people. I probably could do this myself. And
you said it's been 7 years?
7 years.
That's good. Most people,
Thanks.
What's the average business length when people just say heck with it and throw it out? Is it 3 to 5 years
I think
or something
it is,
like that? Yeah. So you've withstood time.
And COVID.
Yeah, that's
that's all by itself.
Well, that was a different animal, wasn't it?
It was truly. And
brush up on all your digital tools and remote meetings and things like that.
Yes, and then specifically to the leader here who is 110% extrovert, like not okay, right? Like you secluded me from everybody. Are you kidding?
Yeah.
And Hollywood Squares, Zoom and all that. That's all I had to go with. Yeah. I don't know if you've ever done a webinar via Zoom, but it is the most boring webinar. HR is boring in general, but then you do that and I have no facial expressions and no interactions. I'm like, okay, this is awful.
Well, I'm in IT. That's what I do. And yeah, we use WebEx or Google. And we've webinars and panelist discussions, and it's not the same because you can't see the audience. You can't gear what you're saying if it's actually having an impact, because most of them have their cameras turned off. Mm-hmm. Or in the case of WebEx, it's an attendee, so they don't even have their cameras or nothing anyway.
That's exactly what I was doing. Yeah.
So you have no idea if they're even paying attention.
They could see me and they could hear me, but there was nothing that I could see.
No interaction.
You
get to the point where you want to open it up for questions and nobody asks anything because you don't know if they're sleeping on the other end. It's just a different world.
It is. So I'm glad to be back in the land of living. Yes. Yeah. And things are going to take off and get better.
So last question, really, I had another one, but so are you working more with companies that are thinking, and this might not even be in your wheelhouse, but companies are really thinking today about, do we make people start going back to the office, or is remote work still okay?
All of our companies are dealing with that, right? Because some of them have decided we're bringing everybody back and everybody's okay with it because it's their culture. And that's for the most part, they try to do that anyway. Others have decided, I've got an engineering firm who's decided they literally sold their building because remote worked for them so well.
I've said multiple times after about a year of staying home that, companies are going to reevaluate. You got your largest cost of the business. One is your staff. Two is your real estate and office space. You can't get rid of your staff for the most part. So do people still need to pay thousands of dollars a month in these huge cities? I don't know. I don't know the answer to that.
I think it depends on the industry, the business, and culture.
Yeah.
I mean, it really does. Like I just literally the company I told you, just to give you as an example, I just conducted stay interviews or engagement surveys with everybody because we wanted to know, hey, how's it going? And for the most part, they said communication is better.
Really?
But again, this is an engineering firm.
Better working remotely?
Yes. Communication within their teams and within their organization has gotten better.
Well, they probably taken the time to book communication meetings to where they get together a couple times a week and actually sit down and listen to one another.
Well, then you're dealing with an office of folks who prefer, I'll just leave it at that, prefer to have little interaction, if they're okay with doing it remote, they're okay being on the webcam there, versus those who really prefer to be in front of somebody and have that engagement and interaction. And so it's almost an office full of folks who have the similar mindset. So it works very well for them.
Huh.
Right. On the flip side of that, I've got different other office groups, who are bringing everybody back and working on getting the transitions and stuff. And then I've got some that are in the middle, right? They've got some that are remote and some that aren't. I've got some nonprofit groups who are trying to figure those things out. I mean, it's just all over the board. It really is.
Yeah, I think in the perfect world, you give people options. If they're not on an assembly line or something like that where they physically have to be there,
Right.
Think about the gas people saved. When we first started this COVID stuff, I couldn't remember the last time I filled up my car when
Right.
that started because we weren't going anywhere.
Yeah. Everybody saved mileage.
Yeah, and then your flexibility of at home, and you can run out real quick and pick up the kids from school, and it really, the freedom has really helped productivity. I never thought I'd be one of those people because I've always been, everybody needs to be here because you're not getting work out of them, but you really are. You're getting probably more of them. I'm sitting at home sometimes at night, working until 10, 11 o'clock at night, not all day up until 10, but I have to do things during the day, and I'll work 3-4 hours at night, and it works for me.
It'll work for those who are self-motivated, who are accountable, who have the autonomy and can appreciate and value that. Then there's going to be others who are not going to do well under that.
Yeah.
So it's going to depend, position, and culture is a big part of it. There's so many things that are variables with that, and that's why we know our clients, and we kind of help encourage and guide them into what direction it goes, and put together policies that help work that. But
Well, you could definitely lead the effort on that because I know businesses are struggling on what to do. And if you've got the data to back up one or the other, or a combination of both, I'm sure it would help them out.
yeah, we do. But it's all custom. We're going to have to get in and find, when if we know the client or if we don't, right? If it's a new client, we have to figure out who they are and what works, what doesn't. There's so many pieces of it. But yeah, we absolutely can.
There you go. How do people reach you? You got a website? Facebook page?
I do. We've got websites, Facebook pages. It's the Facebook. Again, I'm so bad. It's not caught up too much. But website's www.yourhralliance.com.
So we're about the same age because you just started your website with www.
Oh, should I not have?
That's hilarious. No, it's
I'm
funny.
a bad.
No. The young kids point that out. You don't have to say that, Dad. All right, I'll leave that off.
See, nobody told me that. I'm getting on my kids.
That's the IT side of it.
I see.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's yourhralliance.com. Yep.
Okay. And Facebook the same or no?
Yeah, it's all the same.
Well, it's fabulous talking to you.
Thank you.
I've been intrigued with your story when you told me that because we never picked up on that. We're both from the same end of town. I didn't. Anyway, we'll talk about that later. But I didn't get that. You know what? You probably know where the direction I'm going with that.
Yeah.
But yeah, intriguing story, very inspirational. And is this Women's Month?
I don't know. Is it?
I don't know.
March.
My point is, I thought it would be great. It's just an inspiring story. So hopefully anybody, especially young ladies, hear your story. Hopefully it inspires them to realize that there is possibilities. You can start your own business. You can do things. So it's pretty cool.
It's not easy, but you can. You got to believe.
Yeah.
Thank you for the opportunity. I appreciate it.
No, thank you. Appreciate it. Thanks so much. We'll catch up later. So if you're interested in helping Shirley's Way, go to shirleysway.org. And, a lot of businesses are becoming monthly donors as well as individuals. So typically businesses are doing $50 to $100 a month and individuals are doing $10 a month. And we would absolutely love your support because all donations go back out to patients in need. And we've got a huge need right now. It's incredible. So anyway, thanks so much and we'll see you next time.